Tonight's show is Carolina fighting for the season or just show and fight. We've got Joe Person from The Athletic to help us. I guess I don't even know if I say calm us down, right? Because I don't even know where we feel. Like many Panther fans, a little just continued shell shock for 6 years of all of this. It's been a struggle. But Joe Person, thanks for joining the C3 Panthers podcast, man, and giving your time tonight.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Camp. We showed. Hey, can you? Will you show Joe the clip real quick of Pat Coltrane?
It's just camp. It's just camp. It's just early. It's still camp. It's still early. It's just camp. It's still early. It's just camp. It'll be the same folks. It's just week 1. It's just week 2. Wait till after the bye week. It's just week 7. It's just week 8. Oh, they starting to come along in week 10. I knew it. I knew it. They just needed a season together. It was COVID. It's just early. It's still camp. It's just camp. It's
Joe. What have you gotten from camp so far and the Panthers' 2 preseason performances?
Well, camp's over. That's today. They wrapped up in an interesting fashion. That usually, when we would go down to Spartanburg, you guys know it would usually be about the second week of camp and be hot down there, and finally things would boil over. Whether it was Steve Smith and Thomas Davis would get into it, and then Josh Norman and Cam Newton famously. But I think this year was kind of delayed on this fighting because the weather, it was felt like September in Seattle all month until, and even today, it was not a matter of getting hot and that kind of thing. But I know you guys weren't out there, but they were scheduled to have an 8-play team period, 8 to 9 plays to wrap it up. And it was getting so intense. And I think Canales was really liking the competition that he said he added, basically it doubled to about 16 plays. And by the end of it, guys were just salty, pushing, shoving, swinging, yelling. And, as long as somebody's not hitting their fist upside of the helmet and breaking bones in their hand, I'm good with it. This team needs a little fight. This team needs a little edge. And, let's see if they can roll this into Jacksonville week 1.
What do you think about the team? Oh, go ahead, CK.
I was going to say, I can confirm we were not out there, including my drone, by the way.
By the way, that's DroneGate.
Yeah,
if you remember that. Joe, what do you think about the team going into 6 years? Look, we've been doing this podcast for 14. This is, I think, a 14th year doing it now, and it's been a slog. It's tough to you're a professional sports writer, and it can't be always. It's not always rainbows and sunshine, certainly, but it's been hard work for us to get up here, and I'm sure for you. To continue to draw interest in things like here. But what do you think about the Panthers 2025 season team? Just the team, where they're how they're coming in, so much optimism or a little optimism off that final performance of the year last year with Bryce Young, some exciting defensive players drafted. But really, just give us the nitty gritty. What's the story of this team?
Well, that's to be determined. I think there's definitely room and reason for optimism on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Bryce Young, you just mentioned it, ends the season on an upswing. They gave him another playmaker in Teteroa McMillan, choosing to go that route. And I think Bryce, listen, let's be honest. I think Bryce had a big influence in that pick. And he works out with McMillan out in California. He starts calling Dave Canales and Dan Morgan. And, they were already scouting the kid. It wasn't like, oh, wow, now he's on our radar. But I do think ultimately the decision to give your young franchise quarterback another weapon is not the worst idea. I mean, frankly, I remember in this town, we all complained that Marty Herney and Dave Gettleman didn't do enough of that for Cam Newton. So So they do that. The line looks terrific. I know Damian Lewis hasn't been out there, but I think Cade Mays, after he lost that center competition, he slid right over to left guard. And the line's great. I mean, they protected Bryce last year. I expect him to do the same this year. Icky occasionally will have a slip up, but that's going to happen in the National Football League. You know that, I mean, you guys know, like defense, like it's hard to be bought in on this defense. And I think some of it is PTSD from last year, as we all, at week in and week out, we saw teams gash them in the running game. They'd be third and short, so there'd be no pass rush, and you know, up and down the field to the tune of 3,000 rushing yards and 400 and whatever points it ended up being. So, you know, the defense can't be any worse. They get Derek Brown back. I like the new safeties a lot. I think Ransom and Merrick are like, those dudes are dogs. Dan Morgan wanted dogs. Those two fit the bill. They might not have they're not slow, but they're not like the prototypical rangy safeties, but they will come up and they will hit you. And so we'll see. I mean, they're definitely more interesting. I think there's more reason for optimism than in some recent years.
You touched on the defense a little bit there, Joe. And, you know, the Carolina Panthers have really given defensive coordinator Evero a lot of leeway, especially after their defense last year gave up the most points in NFL history. You know, Dan Morgan and that whole front office and Dave Canales felt like they didn't give Evero the necessary pieces to field a competent defense, and very much gave him the benefit of the doubt. It seems as though that Dave is still doing that by saying that he isn't really watching the defense that much, that he's pretty much leaving that to the defensive coaches. How hot is it Evero's seat this year? And do you think that they've made the necessary additions on the defensive side of the football to actually give him the right pieces to finally run this 3-4 defense effectively?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is the question surrounding this team. I mean, you know, in my mind, the most important one. Listen, Evero is a well-respected guy around the league. Like, I'm not going to sit here and champion for him. I mean, he got head coaching interviews here and elsewhere. And so giving him this third season, I didn't have a big problem with it. The personnel last year was lacking. I mean, you know, look, they had the tough. Every team gets injured. I get it. Like, no one's making excuses, but losing Derek Brown and then Shaq Thompson a couple of weeks later for the season, like, that was tough. And so I didn't have a problem giving Evero a third year, but yeah, of course the seat's hot. Like, you know, they don't have a ton of guys on that defensive staff. I mean, they have some guys with experience, like, but if they had to make a change, but let's not even go down that route. Like, let's hope for Panthers fans' sake that the defense plays a lot better, and they're not talking about, you know, any sort of, if there's a midseason change at defensive coordinator, this season is going to be a disaster. So hopefully that's not the case. Your second part of the question, they did spend a lot of money. I mean, Dan Morgan, a year after he rebuilt that line, he's like, I'm going to do the same offensive line. This year, I'm going to do the defensive line. And they missed out, obviously, on Milton Williams. I think that would have been a great get. But I think it allowed them to do a little more. Like, maybe they don't get Pat Jones and Turk Wharton and Bobby Brown if they sign Milton Williams to that huge, you know, $90 million deal or whatever it was he got in New England. So they're a little light at linebacker. You know, I kind of thought they were light even with Josie Jewell, and then they, you know, that jarring news at the start of camp with Josie, unfortunately, and his post-concussion symptoms. And so, yeah, could they add there like a cut downs? Maybe. I don't know if it'd be anybody that would be an upgrade over Christian Rosaboom, but can't get any worse defensively. So we'll see.
short follow-up, Diana Rossini put out a report that the Panthers have been in talks to potentially trade for Trey Hendrickson. Do you believe there's any validity to that report? And could Dan Morgan and Brent Tillis make another addition before the start of the season?
I'd be surprised. I don't doubt the reporting at all by Diana. She's a terrific colleague, and I like working with her. And Dan Morgan, he and Scott Fitter are kind of the same mold, cut from the same cloth in Seattle under John Schneider, that they're going to turn over every stone. And, I know Fitter famously said in on every deal. I don't think Dan Morgan's like that, but I think he is going to pick up the phone and call Cincinnati and see kind of what the asking price is. I think it's going to be too high because you're talking about having to give up some, draft capital, and then you're going to have to pay Trey Hendrickson. And then, oh, by the way, he's really more of a traditional 4-3 defensive end than he is a 3-4 outside linebacker. So,
and he's 31, I think, or 30.
I don't think it's happening. I mean, And here's the other thing. This defense isn't one player away from being like a championship defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't do that kind of expenditure.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I would make the point, and I'll ask my question, but I think it's a valuable follow-up to this. We need to see Evero be able to have a defense that is at least average before you start providing ammunition, and then, hoping that it sticks. But my question is going to go more towards this offense and what many people have been saying has, been a much improved offense. We saw Bryce Young come alive towards the end of the year last year. We saw that drive a couple weeks ago that really made a lot of us incredibly excited. The decision to only play 2 series and 2 different games in the preseason, it just feels to many fans, myself included, that is a mistake. And when you even rewind to last year, the slow start this team had, they didn't have any starters play in preseason, if I'm recalling correctly. Do you subscribe, or, what is your take in having experienced the preseason through multiple regimes, multiple years? Do you really feel as though the risk of preseason and playing starters during that time outweighs any potential reward for this team to start to mesh and really get a rhythm going?
I don't like the decision. I really don't. I would have been okay with it if they had, if Canales had followed through with his plan to play him more like 3 series at Houston. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he really liked the vibe that was going on. And I asked him point blank, was it because of the protection? Because that second series, Bryce got flushed out of the pocket, and I think he got sacked. And both tackles were beaten on the play, I believe. I know Moten was. And so I don't know. And starters played 1 series, preseason series last year, and it was at Buffalo, and they went down the field against like the Bills' second and third team defense, and that was it. That was all Rob Hunt played. That was all Corbett played, all of them, and especially and most importantly Bryce Young. And so I don't know. I don't. They got 4 series this year. It's a little more, but I don't know. I'd have played them. I would have played them 1 more series against Houston and try to get out of that game on a, feeling good about yourself like they did at the end of the regular season in Atlanta. And then you want to sit him this week? Absolutely. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know, man. They did 6 reps, 6 offensive snaps at Houston, and then we're good. Let's go to Jacksonville. So
do you think any fear started to creep in as players have started to get a little nicked up in camp? Like the typical, you're getting these guys nicked up, and it really, and for people that are, all these Panther fans out there is everything that all the optimism continues to come around with if the starters are all there, right? Like, it seems like really once you get behind, and that's never going to happen. And with a great team, great teams have to stay healthy. Great teams find ways to, get through injuries and different things. Nobody thinks that the Panthers, or at least I don't believe, are going to go on a Super Bowl tear, like, or something to that effect. But it really does feel like everything getting better is contingent on everything going right with all the starters. Do you think that there is a little bit, as you see some of these guys, Damian Lewis get a little shoulder, or he's dealing with a shoulder struggle, that they're kind of going, hell, we need these starters there so badly? Do you think that may have crept into some of that decision making?
Yeah, certainly health is part of the calculus when they're making these plans for the preseason. And like, I get it. And, people were tweeting at me the other night when Buffalo was getting killed and like, well, you know what, does Josh Allen need to play in their third game? Because they listen, we're not comparing the Bills and Panthers. We're not going to do this.
Don't watch Hard Knocks, Panther fans, because you'll see former Panthers. You'll see them at college. It'll just make you see Brandon Bean. Right. I was in my feelings watching those first 2 seasons of Hard Knocks. Continue, sorry, Joe.
No. So my point was, yeah, you want to go into week 1 healthy, and I get it. And this team has been healthy in camp. I mean, you mentioned Damian Lewis. He and Tremble have been the most serious, the players with the most serious injuries. And in fact, I asked Canales today being Tuesday, for an update on both of those guys. I really hadn't heard much about either of them recently. I haven't seen Lewis. I think he's rehabbing inside, but Tommy Tremble's running around very well. Like he's running full speed, but he needs to get some contact. I mean, lower back surgery is no joke. And so he's got to go through that next phase. They're still acting like it's possible he could play week 1. We'll see. I mean, he's a big piece. Like, I like JT Sanders a lot in the pass game. He is not kind of the, end line tight end or inline tight end that Tremble can be at times. Mitch Evans, I think he's going to be okay as a rookie, but anyway, Tremble's a big piece. So, and I don't think they're going to put him on IR or anything. I think if he's not ready week 1, I get the impression they feel like it'll be soon thereafter. And then Damian Lewis, same kind of thing. Like Canales said, like, I feel good about him, but I'm not saying 100% Jacksonville, but they really, when you think about it, other than Josie Jewell, which I mentioned earlier, like, let's not sugarcoat that. That was a pretty big loss. But since then, they've been pretty healthy throughout this summer.
All right, guys, we only got a couple more minutes, so let's rock through your final questions. Couple more. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, you had reported today that Dave Canales had the offense run 2 sprints and that he was not happy with the execution as of late. I think a lot of us are kind of wondering what Dave Canales looks like mad, because he's kind of this jovial young guy, who doesn't really ever seem to get upset by much of anything, even after 2 losing performances in the playoffs. Can you speak a little more about what prompted him to do that? And, what exactly does Canales look like when he's not happy with the execution of his team?
He still looks happy.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Everybody wants to marry Dave Canales.
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually tweeted that and I just assumed it was Canales. And then afterwards in our scrum, he said, no, you know what? He said that was Bryce and Chuba's idea, because they've been having these pre-snap penalties, motion and false starts mostly. They've had them against the Browns. They had them against the Texans. And so somebody jumped today. I couldn't tell where we were sitting. And so Chuba and Bryce, all they did, it was one gasser across the field and back. So let's not make too big a deal about it. But in fact, I thought it was interesting. Canales said, I don't really like running as punishment. We do enough physical stuff. I don't want to add to their plates. He said, but it was important to Chuba and it was important to Bryce, and good for those guys. Like, I don't want to minimize it. Like, that was a good show of leadership for a team that this is a young team for the most part on both sides of the ball, especially on defense. But so good on them for showing some leadership and, doing that. It kind of brought back memories of the old Matt Rule sign. What was it?
DDO.
DBO, don't beat
How
ourselves.
about
Yeah,
don't
don't be-
remind me?
Yeah. So so a couple.
Sorry
I
about
think,
that.
Yeah.
No, I think if I may being honest with that, I think Dave Canales is it's really bad timing with that coinciding with the second episode of the Carolina Panthers. I guess their review of the 2015 team when Ron Rivera was laying it into them during the preseason game after I think it was Buffalo, maybe Miami. And so it was, you see two stark different coaches with that. So I think Dave Canales is going to be fighting an uphill battle, being that just happened to come out just days before this happened. But so one of the people in the chat, infamously, you probably are familiar with him, Panther Pickle, is interested in asking, do you think that Latham Ransom is starting this year at free safety?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it'll be week one, but that transition with Nick Scott is going to happen. I like Lathan Ransom. He's, like I said earlier, like he and Merrick, they might get, there might be some games they give up some deep balls. Like I do think, their first instinct is coming forward aggressively. And so maybe there's a rotation there where Damani Richardson plays some too. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of get why Canales is playing Nick Scott right now. I mean, you guys saw his explanation from down in Houston. It was, he likes the idea of Nick Scott, kind of helping Merrig and Ransom get adjusted to the defense because Nick was here last year and helped communicate all this stuff. I get it. But if he starts week one, I don't think it'll be much after that the transition's made. And it may be made before then.
Joe Person with The Athletic here, hanging out for just a couple more minutes on August 16th, just 3 days ago, I guess that would be. You posted the 53-man roster projection on The Athletic. Everybody go subscribe. I've been a subscriber since it started. It's like I'm almost kind of mad you guys sold out. Not sold out, but like are with the New York Times, because it doesn't say The Athletic when you look at the line, like when you post a link, it says the New York Times, right? And then it takes you to The Athletic and things like that, because it says New York Times /Athletic now. That's just like a small thing, but still real journalism out there, folks. But you posted the Panthers 53-man roster projection. Any thoughts since then? Do you have any revisions to your thoughts on this, of like if you are going to go back and tweak this now? I know you're going to do that probably. You're probably working on that right now as we speak, in a sense. Is anything in your mind that you're looking at from that projection that you're keying in on maybe as a change or doubling down on as confident?
No, that's a great question. And yeah, I'll give you one on both sides of the ball. I think, and this is relatively minor. I mean, look, the 53-man spots, we're really only talking maybe about 7 guys every year that are 7 or 8 that are kind of up in the air. But it looks like a Caleb Evans at backup corner has passed Shamar Bartholomew.
Okay.
And Bartholomew had that rough outing Saturday at Houston. Just some tough coverage, got beat on a touchdown, just one of those days. I mean, and so I think, and a Caleb Evans, a guy, remember his background. He was with the Packers. I mean, he had some years where he had, started some games in this league. But more than anything I think he's a better special teams player. He might be their best gunner. So I had him getting cut. I'm going to probably put him on my next one. And then on offense, I had them trying to sneak Bryson Tremaine onto the practice squad. I still don't know how they're going to keep 7 wideouts. But if they do, I think it'll be Bryson Tremaine, with that 7th spot ahead of David Moore. Renfro makes it and Tremaine make it instead of Renfro and David Moore.
We got two final questions for you. One, though,
Yeah.
because the last couple, or one is, I mean, again, we've been doing this 14 years. Cam hasn't been on this team for a while now, but we always joke around is they call me a Cam sexual. He's my second favorite player of all time when it comes to the Panthers. Julius Peppers being the most. He was from Bailey, North Carolina, which is 30 minutes away from me. Is what made me love football. So we'll table that because we got your article. I went back and reread it. I read it when you first published it. My question though is last week I won't say a meltdown. I didn't know meltdown. I've like gotten past getting angry. But there's been a giant debate among Panther fans about Bryce Young as a quarterback, right? I mean, from the beginning, you trade up, you got the number one pick. It was Bryce or Stroud, this or that. Is Bryce? He's been like, I'm of the position. I don't really have an opinion. I just need it to work. I need it to work because, Joe, I guess the meat of the question is just simply this is, what happens this season if it doesn't work? And I know, look, for me, everybody, I go on a radio show in Greenville every Friday, talk Panthers and the NFL, and they asked me about this season, my outlook, and I just said, I need it to work. And they're like, what do you mean by I need? And I was talking about the season, and to me, that is, it's not wins. I don't know. It's not wins. I don't know the only thing I need or want for my own mental and emotional stability is at the end of the season for us to just say, hey, we can keep rolling with Bryce. What happens though, Joe? Like, what are your thoughts on not only, man, we can just say, hey, we got to let it play out. What happens though, Joe, if we get to the end of the season, the Panthers aren't good and Bryce Young wasn't, he's part of the shade of that issue. Are we back to?
Yeah. I mean, you're trading for Sam Darnold. You're acquiring Baker Mayfield. You're bringing in PJ Walker. I mean,
Geno Smith type player.
I mean, I haven't even looked to see like who the free agent quarterbacks are going to be next year, but it would be awful. I mean, you're Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if Bryce takes substantial steps backwards this year, which for the record, I don't think is going to happen, but it could. I mean, I thought Brant Tillis, we interviewed him, like their cap and contracts guy, a couple weeks ago. Kind of right this second week of camp. And he, first of all, he's not going to come out and give their strategy, but I thought he answered the Bryce question, pretty deftly. And that was that they view Bryce as an ascending player. And by the way, Brant Tillis has only done one other second contract for a quarterback, and it was Pat Mahomes in Kansas City. And so he knows, like, that one was obvious. And so what he was saying by calling Bryce an ascending player is that we hope he keeps going that way, that we're going to reward him with a second contract, and he is our guy for the next 5-6 years. But they don't know. Like, they feel pretty good about it, but it's not Pat Mahomes. It's not Joe Burrow. And so this franchise would be set back a whole lot if Bryce doesn't take the next step. I mean, like, look at the Colts. They're making the announcement that it's Daniel Jones, not Anthony Richardson. And so I think they're in good shape with Bryce. I like how he's wired. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's ever going to be like a top 3 quarterback, but he might be. And I think he's going to have a good year.
I called him a short Alex Smith at one point. Yeah. All right, let's go to Cam, and we kind of both got things to say about it.
So, moving to our former quarterback, Cam Newton was in the news because Auburn decided to retire his jersey. They also decided to claim 4 more national championships, which is also kind of weird thing to do. But, you wrote an article, I believe it was last year, about the rift between the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton and some of the steps that could be taken to mend that rift. Could you go over a couple of those and maybe even add to that? And where do you think the Panthers are with Cam now since you've written that article?
Yeah, I actually wrote about it back in March, so not too long ago. And the idea was, here's this guy that this 2015 season's coming, the 10-year anniversary of 2015, which, by the way, I covered that team. Like, it was special. I get it. But I don't remember any big 10-year look backs on that 2003 team. That
social media.
But it's a good point. That's right. It was poor Dan Morgan, the linebacker in that team. It was just pre-social media. But back to the question. I think Cam and Tepper are just two strong-willed personalities. And I do think there have been times when Cam and the Panthers were close to mending fences. And then Cam, gets on his podcast and talks about the Panthers have a loser mentality in the locker room. Cam is a bombastic dude who's never been shy about sharing his opinion and give him, and it's not always, in my mind, it's not always the right opinion or not what I would agree with, but he's not shy about sharing it. And he is not the kind of guy who's going to sugarcoat it either when talking about the Panthers. If he sees something he doesn't like with the Panthers, whether it's, his view of their offense or more recently, which was in this story in March, the fact that he feels like he's been shunned by the organization. And he's parts of his argument is hard to disagree with him. Like, there aren't a bunch of pictures of Cam Newton in that stadium. And I mean, there's not a ton of Greg Olsen and Luke Kuechly either, but Cam is iconic, and they've got to get that right. And I'm not just saying it's all in the Panthers. Cam's going to have to swallow some humble pie on this too. And, I reported today, I didn't do a story, but I reported on Twitter or X that the Panthers are not putting anyone in the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Honor this year. I think there's speculation that people thought some of those 2015 guys might go in. Nobody told me this, but just my intuition is you can't put any 2015 guys in if Cam's not one of them. And it would be a shit show. And it'd be such a bad look optically. And so I think both sides got to get this right. Greg Olsen said they got to get in a room, get some, if you got to get a mediator in there, I'll do it. But let's get this figured out.
Just to follow up on that, you mentioned that some of the things that Cam said. I mean, he's trying to stay relevant in a sense, right? I mean, he's first take. I mean, the whole point is to be exaggerative and to make these points. So that's where I guess we're it's not a journalist, it's it's a commentator that's trying to get ratings and different things. He's got a podcast that he's really trying to put on, kind of some strange story coming out about the money recently, and I didn't trust the source, so I didn't go too far into it. But Roman Harper in your story was like, hey, if the Panthers want to do this, simple, right? Just do it. Ron Rivera, you quoted in the story, said, I'd love to see him get back to the Panther family. There was a point where he was such a huge part of the success, MVP, that we had during that 9-year stretch. He deserves to be back, but he's also got to be willing to do the things and understand that it takes more than just showing up. He knows what he needs to do, and I believe he'll do it. I guess the simple question is, and I'm not giving him a defense here. I'm not trying to defend. I don't know. What has Cam done that has alienated him other than, is there something beyond saying, I just kind of felt left out with the Germany stuff? I feel like, is there something else? And if we were going to have Ron Rivera on the show and ask him, like, what does Cam need to do? So what has Cam done that has contributed this? And what does he need to do? Or maybe, I'm not saying speak for Rivera, but what does that even mean specifically?
Somebody told me, because I asked that same question, like, what do you mean about this? And it was like, when you come into town for your 7-on-7 tournament, don't take the first flight back to Atlanta, hang out an extra day, and come to this event at the stadium, or swing by and, talk to Tepper, or this, whatever. I'm
Kiss the ring.
generalizing. But and that somebody on your comments was and was questioning why I used the word humble pie. I actually meant to say to swallow his pride, kind of thing. Like both guys, these are too strong, and like it's hard to do. Like I get it. Like Cam, to your point, probably doesn't think he's done anything wrong, and so there have been times like it hasn't been like the Super Bowl, and this was in this story too. He and Christy Coleman, the team president, had a moment on Radio Row where they talked for 5-10 minutes. They were seen to, give each other a nice friendly, hug or dap or whatever. And so this isn't that hard. Like,
right.
You make a good point. It doesn't even seem that bad. That egregious has happened. Just somebody, Tepper, get it figured out.
All right. We got one last question about Steve Smith, and then you're out of here.
Yeah, one last question. Thank you so much for your time, Joe. You mentioned some of the, Cam being bombastic and saying whatever's on his mind. Well, somebody who's a lot closer to the organization also has a lot of really strong opinions, and that's Steve Smith. And he even went viral, this past game against the Texans, because he was on the broadcast very openly criticizing this team and how they just look flat. And Steve doesn't mince words at all. Is there any sort of rift between Dave Tepper and how open and honest Steve Smith is with this football team?
No, and it's a good point. I mean, I just think Steve is around more. He comes to practice. I think, it's a great point. I don't have a great answer for you, but except to say that Steve's been around a lot. He was at practice today. I see him at practice a couple days a week. He's part of the preseason broadcast team. And God love him. I mean, to go on this, the team network and share his true thoughts and his real, I respect it. And I don't know. I mean, I think maybe the thing with Auburn, I was going to say, maybe that gets, that brought it into the forefront. That's apples and oranges. I mean, heck, Cam was only in Auburn one season. You guys know that.
Yeah.
But the greatest football,
semesters.
Arguably the greatest college football season of any player, or ranks among it. I do feel like sometimes that the Panthers I would say take advantage, but do you remember like the new Superman movie came out, and they like put up something about Superman, and it was like, oh, this is a little opportunistic right here. Joe, do you think what's your I guess Thursday is the final preseason, right? Game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your timeline of like where your busy work's coming in right now? Thursday's gonna tell us what's just gonna happen. What you're gonna be like, where you're gonna be like, damn, I got these deadlines. I got to look at this. Where you're gonna not be getting sleep. What are you, I guess, looking forward to / dreading? What's that timeline look like?
The day it's not Thursday. Thursday will be fine. It'll be a lot of second and third teamers. I look forward to seeing Jalen Coker. But the day that is sort of that I like and hate is somebody is that calling me Adam Carolla. I've heard that for years.
That's actually a compliment.
No, dude, I love it. I've heard that for years. Anyway, Tuesday, the 26th, cut day. Cut day is when you got to reach out to agents or players or coaches, and you're just basically like, hey man, and you're not calling the agent for Adam Thielen.
Right.
You're calling these guys that you pretty much know are going to get cut. And you're like, hey man, is everything good with your guy? Like,
oh, that hurts.
It's a terrible phone call to make. And just to get a tweet out that says this fourth team, left guard has been cut. And
right.
So, but you kind of feel obligated to do it because people want to know.
Yeah.
And every now and then there's a surprise, and and somebody like Jonathan Mingo or Terrace Marshall or somebody like that gets cut.
Oh, DJ Shark got cut today, I heard, or released or something, by the way.
See, yeah, it happens. But anyway, that day is long too, because most of these agents don't want to call you back because the news sucks.
Yeah, right.
So,
all right. Thanks so much for your time, Joe. Joe Person, The Athletic. The longest beat writer, I believe. I don't know. Are you the longest tenured right now in Charlotte?
Well,
or is it David Newton?
Well, David Newton had a break where he definitely
he did racing before, right?
Make no mistake about it. David is older than I am.
Okay.
But he did have like a 8-10 year, maybe 8-year break where he was covering NASCAR.
Racing. Yeah.
Scott Fowler's been around. Now, Scott's not a beat guy, but
right.
Scott will tell you, and good for him. He's covered like every Panther. I don't think he's been at every Panthers game, but he's been at damn near all of them. And so somebody's asking one more quick thing about Adam Carolla and the Man Show. So one time,
I'll never not see it now.
One time I'm at the golf. I'm playing golf. This is a long time ago, and somebody hands me the phone. We got hooked up with some couple guys we didn't know or something, and he's saying like, "Oh man, you sound just like Adam Carolla." He said, "Here, I'm calling my buddy, and I'm giving you the phone, and all you have to say is, coming up next, girls on trampolines." I didn't even know the line.
Joe, thank you so much for your time. You guys make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. It's something that I've always paid for. It's worth it. Especially if you're if you're a student, guys, you get a student discount, or at least you used to. I'm not sure. I'm sure they still do. Joe, thanks for all your hard work. Do me a solid. Give me a follow back on X.
I appreciate. Yeah, hit me up on that. I'll definitely do that. Appreciate y'all having me on, man. Y'all do a great job. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for sticking around with us.
If you need me to come out there with my drone for training camp, let me know.
Oh, nope. He can't. No comment. Let him go. We might never get him back.
Thanks,
all right, thanks, Joe.
All right,
guys, that was Joe Person with The Athletic. Really, the journalism for the type of for our fans, right? Is that there's still long form journalism out there. I mean, if we could have him on for the whole show, I would give him a whole joke about this. Or tell him the spiel about how Joe and I wouldn't have to tell him about where this podcast came from, but Joe and I, we started